If you could attach a barcode or a sticker price to your favorite grudge, your most cherished hatred, how much would it be? What would it cost in dollars and cents to make it worth surrendering? The amazing reality is that you cannot ever really get even. Are you listening? You can't collect in full. Have you ever thought to yourself, so-and-so has really hurt me, really stuck it to me, but if I can do X to him back, that will even the score. And X was either some dirty deed in return or some marvelously fiery, eloquent, razor-sharp speech delivered in front of not only your enemy, but about 150,000 cheering supporters, or some equally ideal penalty. The absolutely perfect punishment, tailor-made by you with many hours of careful thought put into it. Does this ring a bell? I think I can hear a whole choir of bells going off at this very moment. We've all done this. It's called nursing a grudge. And quite a few of us have RN degrees. In fact, we have MDs and PhDs in grudge nursing. Perhaps you remember a classic old line from the 1973 comedy caper entitled The Sting. It won the Best Picture Academy Award that year, and maybe audiences liked it so much because this was essentially a story about seeking revenge. The crooked New York banker, Doyle Lonnegan, had ordered a couple of his thugs to get rid of a Chicago con artist named Luther. And the entire film then revolves around a plot where Luther's partner, Robert Redford and Paul Newman, try to get revenge by conning this Lonnegan out of $500,000 on a fake horse racing scheme. Well, at the very end of the adventure, they do indeed sucker Mr. Lonnegan out of his suitcase full of cash. And Newman returns to Redford and asks him, well, is it enough? In other words, is this bucket of cash enough to make up for your friend Luther being killed? His vengeance, has it been satisfied? Are you happy now? And Redford slowly shakes his head. No, he says finally. It's not enough. And then he laughs. But it's close. It's real close. Well, that line before the final credits in The Sting really says a lot to us about our desires for revenge. The bottom line is that you can't get there. Or you may be close, but no way can you balance the scales. You can't really get even. There is no there, as the old saying goes. In his book, What's So Amazing About Grace, Philip Yancey has a chapter entitled Getting Even. And some of the stories he shares leave you reeling. They absolutely do. But about halfway through, he includes a line from the great writer Lewis Smedes. Quote, vengeance is a passion to get even. It is a hot desire to give back as much pain as someone gave you. Isn't that it right there? You give me 50,000 volts. I want to give you 50,000 volts. You cause me X amount of hurt or shame, and I won't sleep at night until I've come back with a plan to pay you back right up to the ounce. But Smedes tells us how futile this is. And I'm quoting, the problem with revenge is that it never gets what it wants. It never evens the score. Fairness never comes. The chain reaction set off by every act of vengeance always takes its unhindered course. It ties both the injured and the injurer to an escalator of pain. Both are stuck on the escalator as long as parity is demanded, and the escalator never stops, never lets anyone off. And of course, the history of this planet is a blood-spattered story of how people simply cannot get off the escalator of revenge. If you want to balance the scales, you never can. You can't get parity. No chance. Because, of course, as soon as you even clear your throat to begin the payback process, your enemy, thinking the exact same thing about you, starts it up again. You can't catch up. It really is like the old nuclear policy between the U.S. and the USSR, MAD, MAD, mutually assured destruction. I have so many jet fighters, you have so many jet fighters. I have this many nuclear missile silos, you have them too. Building up, matter and matter and matter. Well, just one page later in Yancey's book, he quotes from a theologian named Romano Guardini, who sees our entire human race on this one-way escalator. As long as you are tangled in wrong and revenge, blow and counterblow, aggression and defense, you will be constantly drawn into fresh wrong. Only forgiveness frees us from the injustice of others. Helen Prejean, who worked with both death row inmates and also with the families of the victims, poses the question, what price could possibly make up for the fact that this man, this rapist, destroyed your teenage girl? He brutalized her. He terrorized her. He killed her at point-blank range. And now we ask you, the victim's mom, would a certain dollar amount balance the scales? That's the stupidest question in the world. Would a certain number of years in prison, a really bad prison, make things right? How about death itself? Would an eye for an eye, a die for a die, be enough to actually balance the scales and bring peace to a wounded heart? With amazement, Sister Helen Prejean writes that even the electric chair was not enough to fully pay back for these heinous crimes. Here's her stark testimony. Vernon begins to cry. She writes, he just can't get over Faith's death, he says. It happened 6 years ago, but for him it's like yesterday. And I realize that now, with Robert Willie dead, he doesn't have an object for his rage. He's been deprived of that too. I know that he could watch Robert killed 1,000 times and it could never assuage his grief. And then this next line is so telling. Quoting, he had walked away from the execution chamber with his rage satisfied, but his heart empty. No, not even his rage satisfied, because he still wants to see Robert Willie suffer, and he can't reach him anymore. He tries to make a fist and strikes out, but the air flows through his fingers. And one thing is true. A story like that helps to put our own grudges into perspective. But I know that my pet hurts are still very precious to me sometimes, and yours are as well. You may not be waiting outside the gates of death row, eager to light off sparklers, but there's someone out there right now, most likely, and you've been waiting a long time for a fair amount of hurt to land on their head. And yet the court transcript is painfully clear. You can't get there from here. There's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow of revenge. Now, the Bible doesn't say it just like that, but it does tell us not to even try to get even. Proverbs 20, verse 22. Don't take it upon yourself to repay wrong. Leave that to the Lord. That's the clear word. And just one chapter later in Proverbs 21:18, the wicked will eventually bring on themselves the suffering they have caused others, and transgressors will end up paying for what they have done to the righteous. I know as well as you do that no matter what the Word of God tries to tell us, Well, something inside of us is going to tell us to keep scrambling up the down escalator. Even if we can't ever get to the top, even if we can't exact perfect revenge, we'll take imperfect if we have to. We'll settle for 50 cents on the dollar if necessary. Even if it's an unfinished journey, I'll enjoy the drive, we think to ourselves. Boy, will I enjoy it. But even that isn't true. This Vernon, the broken-hearted dad in Dead Man Walking, he found that nothing but misery accompanied the road to revenge. There was no happiness for him. Even sitting in a little room at Angola at midnight, watching a man walk the Green Mile and then die in the electric chair. And it's the same for all of us. We've all seen the results of simmering, unsettled anger. It's exacted a cost at every time. It's ended badly every time. It's brought sorrow and spiritual hurt, never satisfaction, every time. But back to this verse in Proverbs. Lonnie, don't take it upon yourself to repay a wrong. Leave that to the Lord. If a perfect payback is needed for some enemy of yours, only God can really deliver. Only God can truly punish to perfection. Only God can fix it so the scales of justice balance right down to the penny. And He will. He promises that He will. In His time and in His way and with His wisdom and unstoppable might. But we've got to let Him do it. We've got to let Him show His might and keep His promises in His own way. And that's forgiveness right there. Giving it to God and then walking away from the escalator. Not my will, but thine be done.